Assalamu alaikum to the amazing people from around the world. This is your Saudi friend. We all know that elderly stories about the past are endless beauty and fascination. I love to listen to my grandpa's stories about where he grew up, Old Jeddah, when there literally was no electricity, cars, or hospitals in the city. Jeddah was so different and small, and now it's the second largest city in the kingdom. I love Jeddah. And if you want to know more about Jeddah, I made a video called The Truth About Jeddah. You can find it here. But now let's focus on what happened in the past. In this video, I'm gonna tell you some of the tales my grandpa narrates to us whenever we visit him. Bear in mind that I don't know when these events happen, but I hope the feeling of wonder and fascination reach you as they reach me whenever I visit him. My grandfather was born in the house in Old Jeddah. Back then there weren't any official document of marriage, graduation or birth. So no one knows how old he is exactly, but he is around his 80s for sure. He said kids would learn how to read and write even before attending school. They would learn reading, writing, Quran in something that's called Al-Kuttab, which is, to my understanding, something like a class where a person sits with a group of boys on the floor and start teaching them. They didn't have any textbook or notebook. They would write the lessons on a board that every student has. And for school, my grandfather attended school that's called Al-Falah School, and it's one of the area's official schools in Saudi Arabia. He said that they would go after Fajr, which is the first prayer in the day, and then would arrive after Asr, which is the third prayer of the day. He said women who live in the houses around the school would cook them lunch, like mulukhiyah and fish, and would serve this meal for free to students and teachers. For healthcare, I don't know really if there was a real healthcare. He said that they would hear someone passed without knowing what was wrong with them. But they had a person that they would go to when they get sick. He was a barber and his name was Faraj Abu Saddah. The name alone makes me uncomfortable. Faraj Abu Saddah would perform circumcision and tonsillectomy with his fingers. My grandfather told me all the details of the procedures and it's barbaric. Trust me, you don't want to hear them. He also talked about hijama, which is popping therapy. He said like you would feel so good and hungry after the session, and there was a restaurant beside every hijama place and you would eat a lot after hijama. Back then, if you were a craftsman, you would be called Sahib Sana. And whatever is this craft, it's more prestigious in the eyes of society than working as an employee for someone or for the government, for example. He said if someone proposed to a girl and he worked for someone, they would turn him down and tell him ma fi nasib. But if he's a carpenter, smith, or a barber, that's prestigious, and they would happily let him marry their daughter. They had a quote that says Al-Yad Al-Shigyana Shab'ana, which means the person who works with his hand is fulfilled. My grandpa was the eldest of his siblings. That being said, he carried a huge responsibility for his age. Since he was a child, he was responsible for family's dinner. Life was so hard, he said. He would go fishing after school in Arba'in Lake. Can you imagine that he would get fish, shrimp, and crab to feed the family? That's a luxury dinner. He said that there was a muddy area in the lake that was so dangerous for people who don't know the area, and he did see once a dead body there. My grandpa would only see his father once a week on Friday, and his salary was only 50 riyals, even though he was educated. And when I asked him, what do you mean by educated? He said like, he knew how to read and write. On the other hand, my grandpa's uncle, who didn't know how to read or write, would make 300 riyals per month. He worked as hammal, which is the person who carries people, luggages and stuff. He would charge for his services depending on the building and the destination. For example, if he would carry a cabinet from a shop to your house, he would charge you 10 riyals. And if he had to carry it to the first floor, he would charge 20 riyals. And for the Second floor, 30 riyals. Jeddah was surrounded by a famous fence called Jeddah Wall or Jeddah Fence in Arabic. The gates of Jeddah would open after Fajr, which is the morning prayer, and would close in the evening. And whoever is outside the gates would stay outside. And whoever is inside would stay inside. Before Jeddah Wall was demolished, Jeddah consisted only of 4 neighborhoods inside the city, or Hawari. The singular of it is Hara, Harat al-Sham, Harat al-Mazlum, Harat al-Yemen, and Harat al-Bahar. The city was so small and the streets would only fit 3 people. They used donkeys for transportation. Donkeys had their own beauty shops. They would get their hair cut and get henna done. And they would hang on them something that's called kushah, which are decorative pieces that make noises when the donkey walks. According to my grandfather, Jeddah Wall was demolished because it became so crowded inside and the city needed to grow bigger. They also needed to use cars which wouldn't fit inside the streets. What's really exciting is that some parts of the wall are still there, like Bab Makkah, and you can visit them whenever you come to Saudi Arabia. I noticed something that's very interesting in the people he talks about. Service providers like Faraj Abu Saddah, who we mentioned earlier, and even the midwife who helped in his own birth, wouldn't ask for money from people who don't have it. And the women who were living around the school would give food for free to students and teachers, which tells you something about the support they had for each other in their community. These were some of the beautiful tales that my grandfather tells me. Tell me in the comment section below, where are you from? And if you have ever heard some stories from the elderly about the past, don't hesitate to share these tales in the comment section. Let's learn from each other. Share, like, and subscribe. And salam.